Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com.
Does placing a hand on one's head suffice in place of a yarmulke? It occurs at times that a yarmulke or other head covering is not available to place on our head, and the question is asked, what is the status of a hand regarding this matter? Such as, for example, your yarmulke flew off in the wind, either got lost or flew to a great distance and you need to walk till your yarmulke. Does placing a hand on one's head suffice to walk to the yarmulke? If you're offering someone food or drink and he doesn't have a yarmulke on, does it suffice to tell him put your hand on your head to say the bracha? So to understand the ruling behind this matter, we must first introduce the general reasons behind the obligation and mitzvah to wear a yarmulke. The idea of wearing a yarmulke is recorded in the Paiskim is an act of modesty, which is meant to cover an area of the head which is normally covered, just like we wear a shirt and pants to cover parts of our body. It also represents fear of heaven and an act of holiness when one comes to say a blessing with Hashem's name. Now, based on these reasons regarding when is it an obligation to wear a yarmulke, so in previous times, wearing a yarmulke throughout your day while you're sitting or walking is merely an act of piety and not an obligation. However, being that it became accustomed to always cover the head, and it's forbidden to uncover normally covered parts of the body, so it then became an obligation. However, wearing a yarmulke when saying a blessing was always considered obligatory, even in previous times. Nonetheless, what comes out of this is that we see there's a difference in severity between wearing a yarmulke while sitting or walking, which is done for modesty purposes, or wearing a yarmulke when saying a bracha, which is an obligation for the blessing. While both of these are obligatory today, in previous times, sitting or walking with a yarmulke was merely an act of piety. Based on this, we can now analyze the ruling of what if you don't have a yarmulke available? Does placing the hand on your head suffice? So we have a clear ruling in the Alter Rebbe, Chapter 93, Halacha 4, Basra 2.6, recorded in Ksais HaShulchan, Mishnah Berurah, Kach V'chaim, and other poskim. That regarding sitting or walking without a yarmulke, it suffices for one to place his hand on his head as a heker in place of a yarmulke. Explains the Taz, the reason for this is since the whole purpose of wearing a yarmulke when you sit or walk is for modesty, to cover normally covered parts, to show Jewish identity, placing your hand on your head suffices for this recognition. The Pri Megadim argues on this and rules that it does not help when you're outside to place your hand on your head to be allowed to sit or walk, but practically the ruling of the Poskim of the Alter Rebbe is, as we stated, that a hand does suffice. So if your yarmulke flew off, you can simply place your hand on your head and continue walking until you get your yarmulke. You can walk even more than Dalet Amis, as regarding this matter a hand suffices. However, to say a bracha with Hashem's name, continues the Alter Rebbe and other poskim rule, that for this a hand does not suffice. As a hand and one's body is one entity, and a body cannot be used to cover itself. As we already explained, covering one's head during a blessing is due to a different reason and holds greater severity. And for this, one's own hand is invalid. We could also explain that covering one's head while walking or sitting is for the sake of others, so when you have your hand that suffices, because others see it as a covering. While covering your head for a bracha is for the sake of Hashem, and Hashem sees that your hand is part of your body, it's not considered a covering. So bottom line, to summarize, you lost your yarmulke, you can put your hand on your head and walk to your yarmulke, even if it's more than 4 amos, but you cannot say a bracha until you place a different head covering on your head. Now what about someone else's hand? If someone wants to say a bracha and doesn't have a yarmulke, can I place my hand on their head and does that suffice? Rules the Alter Rebbe in 91.4 that the above invalidation of a blessing with a hand is only when it's your own hand. But if it's someone else's hand, then it is valid for all matters, and he may say a bracha upon you placing your hand on their head. The Alter Rebbe there concludes that this is because the Rashal is anyways lenient, which this means to say is, Shlomo Luria, the Rashal, was of the opinion, even when you say a blessing, you don't have to cover your head unless you're outside your home. And being that this is the case, the Alter Rebbe says, in a time of need, you can be lenient to consider someone else's hand a head covering, even regarding saying a bracha. So bottom line, your hand is considered a head covering for your own head for the sake of walking and sitting, not for the sake of saying a blessing, while someone else's hand is valid even for saying a blessing.
Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com. Our free services of making Torah knowledge available to the public depends on donors like you. Please help us continue our work through making even a small contribution at Shulchanaruchharav.com under the Daily Halacha Dedication section or in the subscription page. Also, check out our online courses and many Sefarim available for purchase that will both enhance your Torah knowledge and help support our work.